So Sony has decided that they want to be out of the physical media business when it comes to video games. As of 2028, there will be no more actual discs for games, likely meaning that if and when we get a PlayStation 6, there will be no disc drive at all, a download-only console, the same thing they themselves clowned on Xbox for trying to do a generation ago. They're now all in on, and whatever the Xbox brand does next, you can bet it'll follow suit. Everything else Xbox has done recently has indicated that would be the case. How do I feel about this? It pisses me off. It pisses me off a lot. To paraphrase a meme, Lord forgive me, but I'm feeling like it's time to go back to the old me. Yeah, I know, I ain't turned this shit back on in a while. Fuck it if I even know where in the continuity it might fit. The rest of the crew certainly doesn't know either, so don't even bother asking. It just felt appropriate. Anyway, I didn't drag these decorations out of the attic to softball it. This decision by the greedy, craven, short-sighted, demonic bastards at the Sony Corporation is, without exaggeration, likely to go down as the single most anti-consumer, choice-limiting, destructive to the medium decision in the entire history of modern video games. I am struggling, literally struggling, to think of a single worse thing to compare it to in terms of sheer scale and negative impact, and I can't. I just can't. It is pure cruelty, and its impact, if seen through, will be a tragedy bordering on a crime. And not for nothing, but does this not just feel like a double kick right in the sack, given that the most recent likable thing Sony did was back the development of Astrobot, basically a nostalgia trip theme park ride on the aesthetic of, hey, remember when PlayStation was mainly about video games and you liked us? Well, so much for that, fuck you very much. That this will be a blighting and enshittifying of an already desiccated PlayStation brand is bad enough, but it goes further than that. Ending physical games in the Sony space will become a permission structure for other platforms to do the same, normalizing the further erosion of physical presence for games in stores, games in homes, game ownership by game customers, and game players. It will only lead to less and less in what you can own, companies controlling it forever after purchase, further destroy more retail and job infrastructure. Everything about video games will get worse. And you might think that doesn't affect you personally. Maybe you already don't care about physical games because you moved to download only ages ago, either from personal preference or just out of necessity. After all, we don't all have the room for a big library of every game we want to own forever, even just the shelf space. To which I say, look, I don't know how to put this delicately, but it's not all about you. Not everything is about you. For fuck's sake, I mean, not to overuse a quote again, but I don't know how else to explain that you're supposed to care about other people. But okay, even if you personally don't care about game companies and also movie studios, book publishers, TV companies, and every other corporate tyrant continuing to force us into this digital-only, streaming-only, always online subscription service so-called future by simply saying no more physical copies of anything, simply because you don't share the nostalgia or even present-day affection that people like me do for real boxes, real discs, real manuals you can read and study, and, real tangible physical things you can hold and have and share with friends and own. Okay, that's fine. You should still care, because it still obviously affects you, and Sony has been proving this. Look, I've always been able to understand people whose position on physical versus digital was so long as I own it, I don't care if I own it virtually or physically, because, like I said, sure, space is limited and not everyone has the room. I mean, shit, guys, I lost my home because America elected a fascist moron who destroyed our economy twice and exacerbated a global pandemic, so a lot of my stuff is still in storage right now. So I empathize with limited shelf space. But I've also always been suspicious of the concept because, maybe I'm old, but to me, virtually owning stuff isn't owning it. That's just renting. And unfortunately, Turns out I was right. Sony deletes movie and TV downloads that customers already paid for from digital storefronts when they lose the license rights all the fucking time. And it's not like you can, legally, but we'll get to that in a minute, make a copy of what you download before it happens. They don't want you to do that because you might share your copy with someone else. Oh no. So basically, Sony and any other company can just take away your so-called ownership whenever they want. Call me old-fashioned, that's not owning. You don't really own anything. You're just renting. I was right. Which, I always knew, even though I kind of wish I didn't, since that sucks for the rest of y'all. But okay, you say you'll just pirate everything? Can't say I disagree at this point. As the saying goes, if buying isn't really owning, then can piracy really be theft? But if there's no product available in the first place, where are all those pirate copies going to come from in a few years, or a few decades even? How can we pirate games that only existed as services with always online requirements and no standalone experience like so much of gaming has already become? They thought of this. They thought of all of this. Because this has been going on since the invention of TV and home media, when the movie studios looked at the future of home release and said, hey, wait a minute, we're used to getting paid every time somebody watches the picture. How do we keep that going once it's in their own hands? And they keep trying to find a way to get there, and this is merely the newest way. And it's also going to make everything more expensive. You all realize that, right? Like, on top of all the jobs this will destroy as it further erodes the electronics manufacturing and retail sectors of the economy, so if nobody has any jobs, how are they going to buy all this stuff to begin with? But when does that stop them from making decisions like this before? But this means the Xbox and PlayStation are both going to further evolve into more and more expensive dedicated gaming PCs with pricey storage space. Like, everybody said the Steam machine was too expensive, retailing at over $1,000 when it dropped last month, but does anyone doubt the PlayStation 6 or whatever the next Xbox is called won't be priced right in that same range or more now? But hey, okay, even if you're all alright with that, and I mean all of it, not really owning your games ever again, putting up with the occasional random deletion, rebuying all your games again and again at $80 to $100 every few years, on a console that's going to cost over $1,000, that needs an online service you got to pay $100 a month for, on top of whatever your internet and electric bill costs. I mean, okay, first I got to say good for you, Mr. Rich Man. Glad you can afford that, and probably a whole lot of other nice stuff. But you know who it's not going to be okay for? Anyone who can't afford that. And it shouldn't be. Video games should not only be a thing for rich people. I mean, nothing should only be a thing for rich people, really, but especially not fucking toys. Had this hobby always been as walled off and gate-kept and locked down as a thing only for people who can afford $1,000 machines and hundreds of dollars monthly just to keep all their games existing in this state of make-believe so-called ownership, I never would have been able to get into it when I did as a kid, or probably any other point in my life. Would you? Would most of you? Would any of you? Think real hard before you answer that. It used to cost $0.25 to play a round of Mortal Kombat, whether you had rich parents or you were me. And that wasn't some great equalizer that fixed every socioeconomic problem in society back then, but it was better than this. I don't know that there's anything that can stop this whole scenario. It's not only what Sony wants, it's what the games industry wants, it's what the whole rotten entertainment media industry captured by tech oligarchs want. Total control over what you buy and how often you buy and how you can consume, forcing you to pay more and more and less again and again, all about control. They want you to pay more while they provide less, and for what they do provide to be all under their control. Everything feels broken and inconvenient because every company wants you to give up and say, fine, fuck it, we'll just stick with this device for this service and whatever content they provide and whatever they tell us to pay. It's just easier that way. And the only alternative is for people to say no to that, either because they're tired of putting up with the bullshit or because they literally can't afford to put up with the bullshit. Right now, companies like Sony are basically betting that a smaller customer base of wealthier gamers who can afford what they're turning the business into can keep them afloat or float them better, and they don't need to change course. I hope they're wrong about that. I don't know if they are. I expect that Nintendo will hold out and continue to prefer physical formats for a while longer because they typically go their own way, but in truth, I would say the best case scenario would be for this to spur an alternate movement completely in the other direction, for the independent gaming scene to push into physical formats, and the niche physical scene as it exists now to expand beyond nostalgia and specialty games and aggressively make itself the space for a lower-priced, easy-to-access games alternative, since digital-only seems to be intent on becoming a rich person-only space. Now, I don't know if that makes an ultimate difference. I don't know if that stems the tide or turns everything around. But there is such a thing as pricing yourself out of business. It has happened. And if it has to happen, it couldn't happen to a more deserving pack of scoundrels and monsters than Sony is intent on turning modern video games into with this craven, evil bastard plan. I'm the Game OverThinker, and that's the big picture.